Welcome to the B2B CMO podcast, a show for marketing executives who are redefining what it means to be a strategic leader. I'm John Miller.
And I'm Sydney Sloan. Between us, we've led marketing orgs at companies like Marketo, which John founded, Demandbase, G2, and SalesLoft. For more marketing leadership resources, you can visit b2bcmoproject.com. And now let's get into the show. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Today, I am so excited to have this guest, Bryan Law. Welcome. Bryan is the Chief Marketing Officer currently at Nerdio. That's a new role. We're going to talk a little bit about that, which is an all-in-one Microsoft Cloud Management platform. But he's previously been head of marketing, led marketing at companies like Google, Salesforce, ZoomInfo, which is where I think we met at the G2 Executive Advisory Board, and also at SentinelOne. So we were both kind of tiptoeing in security around the same time, just to name a few. Just someone I admire so much, is always on the cutting edge and willing to share his ideas. So for sure, he had to be on the podcast. And the things that I love about Bryan is like how passionate he is around building memorable brands and how to turn the brand visibility into pipeline creation. And having been at ZoomInfo, having some of the best tools and leading from the front, but also having sure it's backed by data-driven decision-making. And he's a very early adopter of AI. He shared a lot of his insights and stories and tools with a CMO club that I'm part of. So we are going to have a full session today. Welcome, Bryan, to the show.
Thank you for having me. And I have to admit, I'm huge fans of both of yours. So I'm very excited to be able to speak with you.
Awesome. Well, it'll be just a friend fest. Okay. So we always start out the show getting to know you a little bit more. And I what's your origin story? Who is Bryan Law? Where did you come from?
Yeah, so maybe a few different things. So it's now not half my professional career, but almost half of it is outside the US. I'm originally from South Africa. And so I think a big part of me is, having lived in a lot of different countries, I'm fascinated by people, how we think, why we do the things the way that we do. And so that is a big component of who I am. I also love data and analytics and strategy. And so that was actually the first half of my career, was in sort of the strategy and consulting space. I did it externally. I did it internally at Google as well. And so that's really important to me. And then on sort of the personal side, I love music. I love house music. I love exercising. I love meditation. And I think all of those things play a role in sort of marketing, coupled with the fact I also really like neuroscience and just sort of how to understand how our brains work and how to apply it into marketing.
All right. So what's the house music to marketing connection?
So I would say it's more of my attempt to sort of release, and also it gets me to where Sydney started. It gets me really excited, and I think a big part of what you have to do as a marketer, both within your team and for your organization, is you have to try and motivate and pump people up about a particular direction, particularly if the company is going through a pivot and moving into some uncharted territories. And so I find that to be my personal motivation, which helps me then hopefully motivate others.
I love it.
So then I can pivot on this question if you want. I'll ask it in two ways. You get to choose the answer.
Cool.
So the other question that we like to ask is, if there was a biopic of your life, what are a couple of scenes that would have to be included and who would play you? But if you want to make it like a musical or a band or something like that, you could do that too. Like if you could like play out your two parts of your life in a rock show or a house thing. Which way do you want to go? You want to go movie or you want to go music?
Yeah, so it definitely wouldn't be a musical. My mom reminded me at a very early age that singing was not one of my strong suits. So I don't think it would be appropriate to have someone singing about my background. Yeah, in terms of if I'm going to have an actor play me, not because I in any way am represented by him, but he's just sort of someone I find amazing is Ryan Reynolds, just because he's a charming, funny individual, and I would love to aspire to be like him. But in terms of sort of like what would be a couple of scenes, I try and think of like what are the things that are most like I get the most personal gratification out of. And sort of earlier in my career, part of the consulting I did was in a few different countries that was around sort of like economic development work. In particular, like in Mozambique, where we were doing work to help like smallholder farmers essentially create sort of sustainable lifestyles. And so like that type of impact was something that I feel very humbled to have been a part of. And I try and carry that into sort of the current state of working, of like, how can I always look out for the people on my team and sort of understand where they're coming from and whatnot. And so that's just something that I've cared a bunch about. And then honestly, like work is very important to me, but I really care a ton about my wife and girls. And so being able to sort of lean into them might be the second theme. And if it were going to be a third one, I'm cheating, something around sort of like research and sort of, I really love the research I did in undergrad and afterwards around neuroscience, and probably tying into that would be key. So I don't know why Ryan Reynolds would be the good person to.
I don't
to
know. I
carry
feel
that
like it should be
forward,
Robert Redford or something when you started talking like that. That felt a little more
more
out of
appropriate.
Africa-esque. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's get into some of the meat here. I mean, obviously, the key theme of the podcast is helping CMOs navigate kind of the challenges of what's happening in the world and the perceptions of marketing. I know you have some really good thoughts on like, what is it? How do you define what a strategic CMO looks like and their responsibility?
Yeah, and I mean, certainly still a lot for me to learn on this front as well. But like the way that I always try and think about my role is first as a business leader, and then secondarily as a marketer. And in some ways, it helps that the first half of my career was not in marketing, and I was spending my time doing corporate strategy work and sort of broader analytics for organizations. But as part of that, really trying to bring a data-driven perspective around sort of like where should we be pursuing the market. Something I really love to partner with sales leaders on is, which of the countries we should be going after, which of the segments we should be pursuing, which are the partners that are going to generate the most return for us, and sort of actively weighing into those like broader company decisions around like where we should focus, I think is really key. And then sort of with sales and with finance, how are we thinking about the business? What are the growth targets that we have? How does that translate back certainly into what marketing can do on generating pipeline, on helping retain customers, but being able to be very fluent in that language, I think is critical. And then from a product perspective, I think one of the best ways that marketing can help is you are the voice of the external market into the product organization, and you need to help with the product roadmap. Obviously, John, you've done that a lot in your sort of expansive roles, but that's where I'd say I try and grow into as much as I can. And I think AI is an area where you can actually provide a lot of value and bringing in perspective. And then the last piece with HR, I mean, they really care about how do you build a company brand? How are you hiring the right people? How now are we thinking about AI? And so I think it's just how do I make sure I understand what are those key priorities for the rest of the leadership team in the company? And how do I see where is there a unique angle or lens that I can bring to help advance those conversations?
Do you think that is a uniquely marketing challenge to sort of manage that level across the other executive peers? Or is that something that you see every CXO doing reciprocally across their peers?
So something that I would say I appreciate a lot now at Nerdio is that the leadership team does lean in a lot to each other's space. But I would say in general, I feel like there is more pressure on CMOs to be relevant across the entire C-suite than is true for other leaders. I mean, not that CFOs aren't wonderful at thinking about the different components, but I feel like they feel much more comfortable in what their responsibility is, and you need to align with them. Sales is responsible for how do you drive sort of the growth on the business side. But yeah, I don't know whether it's how do we prove our value, and so we need to be able to make this sort of tie-in and connection, or just the fact that practically marketing should have tie-ins to all those different areas. And so it's a really good way for us to add the maximum value when we in fact are looking for those connection points. I think probably a little bit of each.
I think that what I've always, and I'm 100% aligned with Bryan on these thoughts, like you can start strategic by helping shape what the go-to-market strategy is. And that then drives alignment of the C-suite around the strategic initiatives for the company. And if you could be the shepherd or the steward of that, that's when I've experienced, I think, the most impact or feeling the most like part of the strategic equation by bringing the market view in. But maybe share, I think we have a lot of lessons learned. I could tell you some stories where that did not happen very well. And maybe as you've gone through your career, what are some of those lessons that you have taken forward, and as you take on new roles that have helped you become or stay more strategic?
One of the things that maybe has become more pronounced as I think about new roles is when you enter a company, really identifying who are the key stakeholders that are going to make or break your success, and then how do you win them over quickly. And I would say, well, always something you sort of think about, but I've become more intentional about it. And so I would say, for example, at ZoomInfo when I came in, I obviously the CEO very important, but the CRO and the CFO. So with the CFO, inevitably they're trying to be thoughtful about spend, and so the first thing I tried to do with him is I went and looked at how we were spending all of our dollars, and we weren't optimizing to the bottom of the funnel, and I was able to come to him and say, hey, I found this is an area where we've been efficient. I'm going to give some of this back to the business, and then I'm going to reallocate some of these dollars in part because I wanted to hire some folks that maybe weren't originally in the plan. But that was very valuable. And then on the CRO side, I leveraged my network and helped us introduce ourselves into new deals and help close some new deals. And so I was very intentional coming into that role of like, who were those stakeholders? Like, where did I think I could add value, and proactively trying to do that quickly so that I could create a baseline for myself. So that was definitely, I think a learning. I think the second one that I still sort of work on is how much I want to be forceful in sort of my opinions, and how confident do I want to be in sort of advocating those across the broader organization. Because, for all of us, as we have more reps, we become more and more confident and sort of sure about ourselves. But ultimately, we're getting paid because we need to help drive sort of outcomes, and we're not getting paid to sort of wonder if we're going to sort of chart the right direction. And so being more opinionated has been something that I have learned and I've tried to grow into. I have strong opinions. I don't know that I always advocate them or advocate for them. And that's been another big learning for me as I've sort of advanced in my career and tried to be more successful as a CMO.
Just a follow up on that, just a very tactical thing. And I think, especially as CMOs have shorter tenures, we tend to enter and exit faster than others. And one good tip that I can offer is, do like a 360, 5 months in. I used to say 6 months, but 5 months in, to really with your leadership team to figure out, where are you excelling? Where are the blind spots and gaps? I've caught myself multiple times not developing enough of a relationship, and it's time, right? Especially as we work remotely and you're focused on what you're trying to do. Of course, you're going to have a relationship with the head of sales and product, but are you spending time with the head of HR and strategizing, brand design or your organizational structure? Lesson learned, so I think those are a great tips.
So getting up to speed quickly is really, really important. And I certainly haven't mastered, but some of the things that I do related to comment setting on getting feedback is now my last couple of companies, literally the first day I've sent a survey. I met my team and sent a survey out to the entire team, an anonymous survey of what's working, what's not working, what would they recommend that I do coming on board. I try and meet with as many of them as I can one-on-one. Obviously, the size of your marketing team limits that. If there's call recordings, I try to go through and listen to those. I always ask who are the top sellers, and I try and get one-on-ones with them. Now, the past few companies, I've used sort of synthetic AI research to help me get a market back view and talk to some analysts. But I think the faster you can ramp and sort of show credibility and be then responsive to sort of the ideas that your teams have, the better off you are. And then practically, I found your marketing team generally knows what they should be doing. They just aren't always getting listened to, and those ideas aren't being surfaced up and sort of pulled together and prioritized effectively. And so I think that's been a big learning for me, is how, one, very quickly to synthesize what they think and then play back to them all of the things that I've heard across those different stakeholders and get their buy-in to the direction before I then go and take it to sort of my boss and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Because then it's not, I need to talk to the CEO and then convince my team that this is the direction. I already understand what they want to do, and I can then hopefully then build upon it. And so they're already bought in before I've had to make the case. And I say that's really been helpful.
Yeah. Kim Storin just shared something. She's the CMO over at Zoom, and she shared that she talked to 50 customers before she started. And that was the one credibility point that she just nailed on when she came in. And it was like nobody could argue with that. And I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, it's a
So
great call
to
out.
add to that list. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, John,
No,
your
I
turn.
mean this is just such a fascinating discussion
Yeah.
because implied in the question I asked a little bit earlier, I do think that there is a asymmetric burden on the CMO to prove credibility and respect that doesn't necessarily apply in other departments. Partly because every other department thinks they get to have an opinion about marketing. And so the more that we can come up to speed quickly and have that credibility, the better. So just definitely agreeing with what you're saying, and I like how you frame it. What I want to do is like move this conversation into the direction of your expertise around neuroscience, and how we can take lessons from that in the world of strategic CMOs. So like mental availability is such an important concept. Like tell us, like, why do you see that that's so important for building buy-in amongst the C-suite, to invest in marketing and believing in marketing?
Yeah, and in a few thoughts there. In the first one, I think I'm thinking about a slide that LinkedIn's B2B Institute shared, but it frames the way that I think about marketing, which is if you think of two axes, so either you are right or you're wrong in the decisions that you make, and the second one is you are either doing what everyone else is doing or you're being contrarian. If you're wrong, it doesn't matter. If you're right and you're doing what everyone else is doing, it doesn't really matter. It's when you're right and you're doing things that others are not doing that you have a chance to stand out. And sort of within that framing, for whatever reason in the B2B space, we're not leveraging a lot of the lessons that are more commonplace in B2C, which is really understanding how you influence people's behavior. And neuroscience, I think, is a really great way to do that. The Ehrenberg Bass Institute, I really appreciate. I've been corporate sponsors of them a couple of times. They are, I believe, the largest marketing research institute in the world, and I have a couple hundred PhDs that literally just study how our brains relate to sort of marketing. And this concept of mental availability is a really core one, which is if you sort of believe the research, which I do, that the best way to influence outcomes is understand first, what are the buying situations? So what are essentially the things that kick off or trigger us thinking about our category? Secondly, when you then have those triggers, what are the associations that happen on our brain? And if you think of our brain as sort of a map of nodes, and each of them is a memory, and those memories have connections to other memories at different strengths, you need to figure out what are the buying situations, what are those memories that get triggered, and then how does your brand attach into that sort of network of nodes? And if you can figure that out, and there are ways to do that, it makes it really, really easy to understand, wow, I'm known for this, and it's something that the market cares about, or someone else is known for this, and it's something else the market cares about, so I'm probably not going to have as much opportunity to try and overcome them. But wow, there's all of these areas that in buying situations, people think about these three things, and no brand is talking to them. It's a really easy way to then make that connection and say, oh, wow, I should put marketing messages around those topics. And so I've found it to be a really effective way to quickly change perception in the market, in terms of like what you actually can do. But in terms of building credibility with your C-suite, I would suggest, because I have not yet come across a C-suite that spends their time thinking about things this way, it's a really easy way to add value and get people thinking about marketing in a much more data-driven, scientific way, which is both helpful for outcomes, but it also is helpful for giving you credibility, because they're like, wow, this person is driven by a very scientific approach towards changing perception and building brands, that I think makes it much easier to drive growth. And then the last thing I will say, and this has definitely been a learning for me, is now in the interview process, I don't shy away from the fact I have a very strong view around how this should work, because if they're not going to buy into it, we should all just be on the same page about it right away. But it's also helped me in the interview process by showing that I do have a very strong point of view that I can bring in. And coming here at Nerdio, it landed in the interview process. But within my first 2 weeks, I did a whole session with the ELT around neuroscience and marketing and what were all the things that we should be doing and rolling out. And it was really enjoyable, one, to see everyone's sort of interest in the topic, but also the willingness to try out and do some things differently. And we, in fact, are moving forward on almost all the areas that I suggested in that space, which is, again, I think a nice thing about being at a company where people are open-minded. John, did that answer
Yeah,
answer?
although I'd love to pull the thread just a sec longer because, like, okay, so I'm listening to you. I'm now the CMO at a new company. I want to do that. Like, what tip can you sort of give to somebody for how to
Yeah, how to make it
replicate
work?
some of that magic without necessarily all your experience?
Yeah, well, and so it used to be so back when I first started thinking about this space and was relying on the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, they had a lot of great theory and they didn't have like a lot of practical application. And so I remember the first time I did it, I found someone who did research in brain density studies. And so I was like, hey, can we tailor what you're doing to how I'm thinking about it? And reach out to a bunch of at the time chief data officers, and then started to iterate over time. Now you can do a lot of it through synthetic AI. And so, not meaning this is a sort of a pitch for a company, but I found Evidenza to be the best ones at this, and I've now done it at the past 3 companies, and it works really well. So, synthetic AI, what does that mean? So, rather than going and saying I want to talk to a bunch of actual CIOs, I need to figure out who they are, I need to pay them $1,000 each because otherwise they're not going to take the survey. We can use AI to say this is the audience that I want to talk to, and it actually really effectively replicates that experience of talking to folks. And the nice thing is you can talk to them individually, you can talk to them as groups, you can ask them follow-on questions. And I would imagine some people in the audience might think, that's not going to actually work. But to give you some real examples of how effective it has been. So one of the companies that I did it, I took the output to the CEO and he said, oh, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. But this one completely wrong, not valid at all. Almost, I'm going to write off this whole process because it's so wrong. And I went to the CRO and said, hey, what are your thoughts about this particular sort of buying situation? And he said, you know what, this is actually becoming one of the biggest drivers for new conversations that we're having. And so the CEO of the company, who had been there for a long time, was missed something that the synthetic research had found. Sort of another example is we did a sort of a traditional messaging framework motion. One, the product marketing team, the other one that I did based on synthetic research. And then I took both to our CEO, our CRO, our Chief Product and Technology Officer, and they vastly preferred the one that came out of synthetic research. And so I think there is a lot of real credibility in terms of how it works. Again, I do think Evidenza is the best one sort of in the space right now doing it. And even if you weren't going to do it as a way to sort of drive your messaging framework, it's a really good way to get up to speed. And it really helped me even here for Nerdio to understand the buying situations. We did it. I surfaced them. The leadership team, we actually reviewed it last week, agreed with all the buying situations that they came up with. And they're like, oh, wow, this is actually really fascinating. We're not leaning into these as much. And so I would recommend doing that. Secondarily, you could try and do it through LLMs. So like whether it's Claude or Gemini, ChatGPT. I have not found them to be as precise though. They can't give you the perspective of where you stand as much relative to competitors, sort of the detailed insights. But that is a directional way to get there. I would say it's worth the extra money to invest in a company like Evidenza.
Yeah, I've done the quick and dirty version of as you said myself, where I have recordings of 200 calls with potential customers, which I had AI create a synthetic panel based on that, which I can ask questions to. So it's useful, probably not as useful, but there is the cheaper version out there.
To get there, to get there as well. Yeah, and I mean, I think anything that directionally moves you towards better understanding your customers is really valuable. Whether it's listening to all your Gone course calls and running them through AI, trying to use analysts as a sort of an effective voice because they talk to tons of customers. But I do think that it's a really, really powerful way, particularly when it's framed in the context of what are the core buying situations. In those buying situations, what are the associations the people have, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions? And just a bit of an aside on that one, there is so much research out there that shows the way that our brains actually work is that emotion is equally, if not more important than sort of rational thinking to making decision making. The Damasio is a PhD in sort of neuroscience who found that actually when you have the part of your brain damaged that's responsible for emotional processing, you actually can't make a decision. And so you need to make sure that you're speaking to both the emotional and the rational side of people's brains. And sometimes it's easier to get that emotional lens when you're doing it through synthetic research versus like asking someone, although it is worth also asking them too about do certain things make you afraid or excited or what's the emotional underpinning behind the decisions you're making.
So I think that the TDLR here is as we think about how we build our personas. And we definitely have taken them to the next level with the use of AI now, right? They're not just a static, slide that somebody worked on because they had to, or, it was a project that stopped, because we know we can embed it into the AI workflows. It can continue to learn, it can validate messaging. But what I took away from what you were saying is, how do we go deeper into the emotional connection, the thoughts, the feelings? And I've been an advocate for, as we move into this world of AEO, like, yes, we need to create content that's going to serve the LLMs and understand the questions and answers in natural language, which is all great. But to build your brand has to be outside of those questions. You have to be answering other things that your buyers, your customers care about. And I think this is an excellent way to like dive into what are those other challenges. Have you, as you've come into Nerdio, and I know you're an early adopter of AI, how have you approached, that where the team is at, like what the opportunity is, and maybe 2 or 3 use cases that you've already started to implement with your teams?
Yeah, so something that's been actually a really fun sort of learning opportunity for me, because I'd like to think I use AI pretty effectively, and there's just an incredible amount of excitement. And our CEO, honestly, is just a very, very intelligent individual and has been using Claude Code in particular to automate so many things that we do. It's been a learning opportunity for me in addition to bringing stuff in. So, I mean, a few different areas. So one, obviously, I mentioned trying to get the sort of customer back perspective, and using sort of evidence as one of the ways to get that done. We've also been using it relative to we use Gong here to try and synthesize all of the inputs at scale and try and provide perspective. Something that I guess I'll say is we're also trying to figure out how to really sort of extend our social reach. And so one of the things that we've actually been going through and doing is figuring out who are sort of the key advocates within our company, as well as our broader ecosystem, creating personas for each of them based on how they tend to write on LinkedIn, and then actually generating at scale sort of content for people to be able to release at the same time. I think one of the cool things now that you can do with LLMs, and again, we just happen to use Claude, is you can go through and have it act like you on your desktop. And so it can allow it to go and sort of actually do some of the research that maybe you couldn't do in the past with sort of like scraping capabilities. So I think social has been another way of like, how do we sort of expand our creation of content, get more things that are going out effectively. I think everyone talks about how do you just at scale create content, which I think is valuable. The sort of underlying guts of how we operate. So we've been trying to pull as much data as we can together across all of the traditional go-to-market systems, our product usage and whatnot. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for AI to help with bringing together, normalizing, so essentially like matching data and cleaning data, and then using it to actually tell sellers or SDRs like, hey, do this, do that. This is the 10 things you should do today. And so we've been it's currently under works, but we've been making a lot of progress on being more clear with our sellers around like what are the activities they should do, which are the accounts they should go after. This you need to follow up, and you need to take this action around sort of scheduling a new meeting or following up with this incremental person. And I would say we're starting to see a lot of success on that front based on some things I've done elsewhere. I don't know. It's almost like what can you not do to simplify for AI? I think the biggest thing for me is how do you make all of your team members better, stronger, faster? Not how do you replace them, but how do you just make everyone I don't know, superhuman, for lack of a better word.
I want to move on to metrics and talk a little bit about back to this definitive strategic CMO, because I loved how you answered it. And it's different how some other CMOs answer it, which is usually like, well, you got to have the metrics. You got to prove your impact and everything. And you didn't go there. So like, what do you think is the modern CMO scorecard? If it's not MQLs, what keeps the CMO confident, to keep investing in that brand compounding?
Yeah, well, and so certainly something that I've tried to advocate for it at previous companies, and it's been great to see the receptivity here, is knowing that I need to be aligned with our CRO in generating, whether it's sort of ACV or ARR, or whatever the revenue sort of metric is that a company is going to use. I see myself as responsible for the overall pipeline for the company, not just what marketing sources. And the reason for that, so something that I did at my last company is we looked at all of the opportunities, all the pipeline that was created, and not surprisingly, we found that the different channels, so sales, something sales sourced, SDR sourced, marketing sourced, channel sourced, most opportunities have multiple touch points associated with them. And what we found was that marketing may get credit for a third of them, but marketing actually was involved in 85%. But importantly, when multiple sources are involved in pipeline before it opens, it actually leads to faster closing, higher close rates. And so I'd say that's a really big, important area for me is how do I think holistically about the pipeline we're creating? And then secondly, how am I working with sales to improve our close rates? So once something is in pipeline, how are we expanding the buying committee? How are we making sure that we are sort of getting them to small group events? And so a lot of it is around like overall pipeline creation and close. But then from a brand perspective, I do think it's really important to figure out ways to try and show measurable like pipeline or revenue related outcomes. And so something that I did at a previous company when we were trying to make a case for the brand campaign the first time is we used a few platforms, LinkedIn, StackAdapt, to actually show, hey, when our audience is being exposed to brand, they are more likely to convert on demand. And it was very clear, not only that it improved the conversion rates on demand, but the overall spend was more efficient when you did those things together. And you can do that by either doing sort of, holdout groups, and specifically targeting some subset with brand and not others, and seeing if the account moves farther forward, or you can do it down at the individual level and saying, hey, when an individual is getting exposed to both, how do you do it? And so I think you need to measure all the way through. Definitely don't want to give the impression that metrics are not important. I would say that's the lifeblood of how I think about marketing. But it's how do you make those metrics relevant? Because I don't think the average person cares about the MQL that you're creating. It's how are you generating business? How are you moving things faster forward? How can you prove that if marketing is going to do something with an opportunity that's open, that you are going to actually influence the close rates relative to other accounts that are out there? And I think it's that type of data that ends up being most impactful.
Have you also, like in this new world where we're, the buyer has moved over to the LLMs and the old, PPC, pay for your lead model is being constrained. What shifts have you started to make as you think about how you're going to be investing the money?
Yeah, so certainly first you need to have visibility into what is being searched in LLMs, and so there are different tools that are out there. Profound has one, Meltwater has one, GrowthX have them, and sort of getting that visibility I think is really, really key. And then as part of that, you need to create a lot of content that speaks effectively to that. And so whether you want to do that internally, I know Samsara has sort of created a pretty cool process around that. We lean into leveraging GrowthX to help us build content at scale. I used them on my last company. We're just starting to onboard them here. But I think as we all know, if someone is searching in LLMs and they come to your website, they convert at a significantly higher rate. It varies company to company. And so that has been a really important source for us because whether it is coming from organic search or it's coming through an AEO, GEO source, that still tends to be a really, really valuable, important way to get sort of deal velocity. But it's also just practically how people are learning. And I think as we all know, people are spending more and more time learning before they talk to you. And so you just need to make sure your thought leadership is out there. So I'd say, visibility and understanding of what people care about, generating content that is effectively is going to show up in the LLMs. And then I think something that is really great about this push on AEO and GEO is it's forcing us as marketers to do something that we should have done a long, long time ago if we weren't, which is think holistically about what you're doing from a PR comms perspective, what you're doing from a social perspective, how you're getting your reviews to show up. Like, what are those key messaging pillars or narratives, and how do those all align together to make sure you're standing out in the market in a consistent way?
Plus one to that, that's 100%. I'm like, it's not a single person's job. Like, I think we thought SEO was a single person's job or PPC was a single person's job. Like, this is a team effort across all the different surfaces and experiences that people are going to engage with, your influencers and all of it. And so I think it does fundamentally change, and the messaging has to change also for the better, because it has to be in the voice that the customer would use, and not the marketing speak that we kind of settled on for so long. So I love that too.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally agree. One thing, and Sydney, you mentioned it a couple of times or alluded to it. I strongly believe that being consistently distinctive is way more important than being differentiated. And so what that means is standing out is more important than being different from someone else. And so I think tied into your question around AEO, GEO, how do we sort of grow our brands? That is a really important thing, is figuring out how are you going to be known in the market so that when people think about things, they think about you. And then it's the job, once they're in the market, to actually help explain why they should choose you. Yeah, it just an
And I don't
important
think you can rely on AI for that. I mean, I think that this is the other part that gets me excited about the state we're in right now, is we actually get to be creative again. We actually get to curate our brands and figure out what does make us stand out, and hopefully convince the finance team that it's worth investing in. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it, but I 100% believe in that. And that gets me excited again. It's like, we're just not, technical people writing AI code and, managing pipe gen machines. Like, we actually are brand builders. We're customer advocates. So that's, the fun part of the job that we have to remember. Part of our job is creative and fun.
Here,
Um,
here.
Yes. The last thing that we like is the opportunity to share gratitude. So we don't get to where you didn't get to where you were alone, and I'm sure you had a lot of mentors and supporters along the way. So would you like to give a shout out or two to people that have helped you on your journey?
Oh yeah, there's so many people. So maybe Taylor Rhodes, he was the CEO at Rackspace. So I had, before I got into marketing, I had only done strategy and analytics roles, and I came in as a chief of staff to him, and he was the one who saw the opportunity for me to go into marketing, and sort of led me sort of down this path. And when he first mentioned it, honestly, I said, Taylor, that's not what I want to do. I want to be a business owner and run a P&L. And he said, I think you'd be really good in the marketing space. So yeah, really appreciate him for that. And also always saying feedback is a gift, before he told me I was doing something wrong, and really highlighted that it is important. And then Jackie Yaney, she was the CMO at Tableau, and actually really helped me while I was reporting into her, develop myself in ways that enabled me to take my first CMO gig. And so I'm forever grateful for the sort of the coaching she provided. Again, that stuff, and there's so many others, but
Yeah.
I feel like I've just gained so much from being surrounded by really smart, capable, inspirational people.
That's amazing. Well, Bryan, this 40 minutes went so fast. But I did want to share a couple of takeaways that I hope people also listened in. And the first is, I think you're one of the most strategic marketers out there. So understanding your background in data and consulting, and then applying that to marketing now makes sense to me. Those connected the dots. But really, where you leaned in is starting with deeply understanding the customer and how they think. And that is not something we hear that often. The second thing that I took away from our conversation was the importance of relationship building, and how to make those quick connections, understand people's motivations, especially within your peer group. And don't forget, like, everybody has a role, and marketing partners with everyone. So to ensure that you're building those relationships from the start to get that strategic alignment. I think when there is alignment in the C-suite, it makes everybody else's job easier. And then lastly is just being data driven. And I heard it from the very beginning when you talked about how do we analyze and drive strategic go-to-market, how do you audit your pipeline, and then brand validation, and using that as a way to ensure that the company is investing in brand and showcasing what a great distinctive brand, I think is the right word, right? Can do for a company. So this has been an amazing, I'm so glad you said yes to us, and shared all these learnings from your journey. And I know we're going to continue to watch you continue to be a strategic CMO. So congratulations. John, any
Yeah.
final thoughts from you?
Bryan, thank you so much.
Well, thank you both. It was great spending time with you.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the B2B CMO podcast. Head on over to b2bcmoproject.com for more episodes, plus the latest research and frameworks CMOs need, not just to survive, but actually thrive as AI and the new playbook reshape how we go to market. And if this episode sparks something for you, please follow the show, leave a rating, and share it with a marketing leader who could use a little inspiration. Special thanks to our wonderful partners, G2, LinkedIn, Webflow, Goldcast, Demandbase, 2X, and Check for making this podcast possible. Until next time, be safe out there.